My friends, at 95 years old, I've learned something about the world of power. The higher a person climbs, the more fragile their balance becomes. And I've also learned something else, something I rarely talk about because I don't interfere in politics. But every now and then, a moment arrives that's not about politics at all. It's about the simple truth of human behavior. And tonight, that truth is knocking louder than ever. Behind closed doors, former President Donald Trump is losing control. Advisors whisper that he's falling apart. The pressure is beginning to pull at the seams. And whether you love him or hate him, the reality is this: pressure reveals character more clearly than power ever does. Now, I don't say that lightly. I've lived through 14 presidents, each convinced they could bend history to their will. Some did, most didn't. But all of them, without exception, faced one moment where the office became heavier than the title. A moment when the room got quiet, the advisors backed away, and a man had to ask himself whether he was still in control or simply reacting to the weight around him. Tonight, we're looking at one of those moments. Trump's inner circle says he can't sleep. He paces, he rants, he demands answers no one has, and promises outcomes no one can guarantee. He is surrounded, but somehow alone. This is where the real story begins, not in the headlines, not in the speeches, but in the silence between them. You see, my friends, the public sees the rallies, the cameras, the statements. But behind the scenes, the story is different. It's quieter, it's more fragile. And right now, the people standing closest to Trump say the pressure has reached a point they've never seen before. They're describing a man who feels the walls inching closer, a man who's used to controlling the stage, but no longer controls the script. And pressure, when left unattended, grows teeth. His advisors say he snaps without warning. He fixates on enemies, real or imagined. He demands loyalty one moment and doubts it the next. He makes decisions that even his own team can't explain. And let me tell you something. From nearly a century of watching powerful men rise and fall, a leader doesn't collapse all at once. They crumble in whispers, in late-night meetings, in restless pacing, in anger that shows up before the truth does. A presidency, past or present, doesn't break in public. It breaks in private. Trump is facing legal storms, political storms, financial storms, and personal storms all at the same time. That is a level of pressure most men are simply not built for. And even those who are crack a little when the heat becomes constant, I've said it for decades, pressure is the great equalizer. It humbles the proud, exhausts the strong, and exposes the cracks the world wasn't meant to see. Tonight, those cracks are showing. His advisors say he erupts in anger without provocation. They say the nights are long and the mornings are longer. They say he blames those around him for problems he created himself. And they say quietly that he is no longer the man they once followed. Now, before we go deeper, let me remind you again, this isn't about politics. This is about human nature. Leadership is not about the size of your voice. It's about the size of your composure. And right now, Donald Trump's composure is slipping. I've sat across from business leaders worth billions. I've sat across from presidents, prime ministers, generals, and the one pattern that never lies is this: when a leader stops listening, collapses aren't far behind. When a leader starts blaming, responsibility evaporates. When a leader becomes consumed with fighting shadows, the real threats move in unseen. Trump is surrounded by shadows now: legal cases, investigations, public scrutiny, internal division, financial strain, and the constant pressure to maintain an image of strength. Even as things fracture from within, it's not sustainable. And his advisors, the people closest to the fire, are the ones saying so. They describe moments where Trump vanishes into long silences, then bursts into sudden rage. Moments where he rewrites events in his mind to ease his worry. Moments where he pushes aside warnings, convinced that he alone sees the truth. My friends, when a man stops sleeping, he stops thinking clearly. When he stops thinking clearly, he starts reacting emotionally. And when a man with power reacts emotionally, the consequences ripple far beyond his private walls. Advisors speak of late-night calls, frantic statements, shifting plans, and orders that change as quickly as they're given. They describe a man who fears losing control more than anything else, a man who built his identity on dominance, now confronting moments where dominance no longer works. And let me tell you something I've repeated all my life. When your identity becomes your armor, it eventually becomes your cage. Trump is trapped by the same persona that once carried him. The louder he tries to project strength, the more those behind the scenes see the strain. His allies panic when he panics. His team hesitates when he hesitates. And his uncertainty becomes their uncertainty. This is how leadership collapses. Not in a single moment, but in 1,000 moments that no one sees. Now, what comes next? The truth is simple. If Trump continues losing emotional control behind closed doors, the consequences will spill into the open. Public statements will become more erratic. Legal missteps will multiply. Allies will distance themselves. Supporters will feel uncertainty. And political rivals will see an opening. This is not about whether you support Trump or oppose him. It is about recognizing a truth that history teaches again and again. A leader's greatest enemy is not the opposition. It is the pressure they cannot manage. Trump is now fighting a battle within himself. Fear, pride, exhaustion, anger, pressure. These are the forces swirling around him. Advisors are sounding alarms because they know the signs. They've seen powerful men fall before, and they're watching it happen again. I've lived a long time, my friends. Long enough to see empires rise and collapse. Long enough to see presidents ascend with confidence and descend in chaos. Long enough to know that when a leader starts losing control behind closed doors, the collapse doesn't stay hidden for long. And the question the nation must ask is simple. What happens when a man who hates losing starts losing control of himself? The coming weeks will tell. The walls are moving. The pressure is climbing. And the whispers are growing louder. Whether this ends in recovery or in rupture depends on whether Trump can confront the storm inside him before the storm outside swallows him whole. My friends, the truth is no longer hiding. The cracks are here, and the fall, if it comes, won't be sudden. It will be the final chapter of a collapse that began behind closed doors.